So, if you have been philanthropist on someone and something bad is taken place against you, you should not swear that you will not be philanthropic on him anymore. Perhaps your anger comes down and then wanting to be philanthropic to him, but you argue with your oath. So, quote, make not less square bracket your oath by right square bracket all or dad and less square bracket subject to right square bracket against doing albert left square bracket that is righteous right square bracket, end of quote. Then, Allah the Almighty says, quote, to donate those of the Leal Qurba left square bracket of the kinship right square bracket and al-Masakin left square bracket the miserable right square bracket and the immigrants for Allah's cause, end of quote. True that Musa'ah is from the relatives of Abu Bakr and of the miserables, but Allah the Almighty gives him another declaration. His act did not exclude him from what Allah the Almighty has described the immigrants with, and his guilt did not drive him out of this great honor of Allah the Almighty is that the sin does not dislodge the hasanah. However, the hasanah, after the sin dislodges the guilt. Surah, verse 14. Quote, indeed, al-hasanat left square bracket good deeds right square bracket dislodge bad deeds. End of quote. Although of what Musa'ah had fallen in, Allah the Almighty had caused him to stay in the field of blaming Abu Bakr, and tendering his heart of Abu Bakr, and caused him to remain among the immigrants. Quote, and they so do excuse and they so do forgive, end of quote. Forgiveness, leaving the penalty as per the guilt, but you may pardon the guilty, then you rebuke him, and brag against him with your forgiveness, and always you keep reminding him that he deserves it not. Therefore, Allah the Almighty urges us for forgiveness after pardoning, and forgiving, letting go of reminding and not mentioning the guilt, so the punishment is to be easier on him than your pardoning of him. That is, because when Allah the Almighty legislates for the humans what organizes the relations between them, He takes into consideration all the talents of the self, not limited to the higher talents only, but all the talents. And in that, Allah the Almighty says, Surah, and now verse 126, quote, and if you are to punish left square bracket an enemy, O believers right square bracket, you punish with the like of that with which you were punished. But if you endure patiently, it is better for a sabir in left square bracket the patience endures right square bracket. End of quote. If we pondered in the reality of the as, just as in returning the of the offense, we will find it hard in its assessment. Had somebody hit you hit, do you have the power and ability by which you return this hit with another like it exactly and in the same way, the same force and the same pain, so you are not an aggressor? Had you pondered this as just as you would have preferred pardoning instead on being involved in other mazes? and preceded that we mentioned the story of the usurer who set on the borrower the condition, if he has not been able to pay back, then he has to cut a pound of his flesh, and when he was late to pay back, his opponent took him to the judge telling him what was of the condition. The judge was smart and said to the usurer, "Take the knife and cut 1 pound of his flesh. However, if it was in excess, we are to take from you, and if it was less, we also are to take it from you." The usurer backed off, because he cannot estimate this issue. Thus, if we moved away from the penalizing by the same, the forgiving would have encompassed us and the issue will come to the best of ends. And in another state, Allah the Almighty says, Surah Al-Imran verse 134, quote, "Those who spend less (in the cause of Allah writes during ease and distress and less who suppress rights the rage and the forgivers for the people, and Allah loves the philanthropists less the doers of good rights end of quote. Thus, the right Almighty makes for us states in returning the offense, punishing by the same is one, and wrath suppressing is a state, and pardoning is one, and forgiving is another, and He has given for all the rank of philanthropy to who runs against you, quote, and Allah loves the philanthropists less the doers of good rights end of quote, less Al-Imran 134 rights Then Allah the Almighty makes of Himself the model for His servants, quote, "Do you not love that Allah forgives you?" End of quote. As you love of Allah the Almighty to forgive for you your sin, then why don't you forgive that who offended you? As though our Lord wants to mend what is between us. Therefore, when this verse came down in concern of Abu Bakr said, quote, "I like, O my Lord, I like, O my Lord, I like, O my Lord," end of quote, and Allah the Almighty, quote, and Allah is ever forgiving, most merciful, end of quote. Whoever adopted the morals of Allah the Almighty, let there be for him forgiveness and mercy, and who of us that doesn't love to have in him some of the attributes of Allah the Almighty, so he is described by being forgiving and merciful. Question mark.